On today's episode of the Investing Revolution, we're talking property manager toolboxes. How do we get your property leased quicker than other people? And we have a guest today, Tim Wallace with Tenant Turner. Make sure and join us.
This is the Investing Revolution, a podcast designed to help your real estate investment strategy. On this podcast, we'll teach you the actionable steps to take and pitfalls to avoid so that your real estate investing can thrive.
Welcome to the Investing Revolution. I am your host, Jonathan Cook. Today, we're doing things a little bit different than normal. You've probably already noticed that I'm not in the wonderful Revolution studio with all the egg crate soundproofing and the big logo in the background. I'm not in my normal blazer, and we're just going to have to excuse that because I am working from home today. We might do a couple of these. I'm actually looking forward to kind of a series that I'm looking to put together, and I want to talk about the software and the prop tech suites that property managers utilize to ultimately give their investors a better chance at high returns. And I could not think of anyone that I would enjoy having this first part of this series go with other than my very good friend, Tim Wallace of Tenant Turner fame. He is Tenant Turner Tim. Tim, welcome to the podcast, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Oh my gosh, so welcome. We actually had Landon Cooley on recently talking about resident benefits and owner benefits, and that's kind of what kicked this idea off in my head. Property managers, and you and I have been in this industry in multiple companies, but we've seen kind of the inner workings of this industry for several years. And it goes to, there's something to say about really good property management companies having the right level and the right individual parts of like this prop tech suite, like a tool belt, like, we utilize these 8 different prop tech companies, and that lets us be super efficient property managers or really good at X, Y, or Z. And Tenant Turner is probably one of the vendors that I have been a client of maybe longer than any other, except for potentially Second Nature. But I still think Tenant Turner beats them out because they were filter easy before, and that's 2 separate ideas, 2 separate company names. So maybe I've been a client of Tenant Turner longer than any other prop tech vendor that we utilize. Can you give us kind of a quick idea of your background? I want to let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about, how long you've been in the industry, let us know, when you got to Tenant Turner, and kind of give us a breakdown of how Tenant Turner helps property managers. Give me just an overview. Give me a nutshell.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in the industry for coming up on 4.5, almost 5 years now. I got my start with a company in the prop tech industry that was focusing more on the smart home side of things. So entry, thermostats, water sensors, things like that. Might be familiar with Point Central. There's quite a few other competitors of theirs out there in the industry right now. And so in 2020, I took a look around. That was when we had already had a great partnership on the Point Central side with Tenant Turner. We'll dig in on self-showings a little bit later on how they tied in with smart home access and things like that. But we had a great relationship. I was looking for a little bit of a change, just moved my family to the East Coast. And what do you know? There's this awesome little company based in Richmond, Virginia, that just happens to have an amazing reputation within the prop tech community for whether it be self-showings or just leasing automation in general. So I've been with Tenant Turner since the tail end of 2020. So switching jobs in the middle of a pandemic, lots of people did it.
No big deal. We all changed massively during a pandemic. I invented some software, changed companies, all that fun stuff. The pandemic changed a whole lot of stuff around. But it also, what's great, speaking of the pandemic, oh my gosh, speaking of the pandemic, that in my mind was one of those encapsulated moments where everyone scrambled. Every property manager that I knew. I mean, you and I have both been a part of NARPM for several years beyond working for the companies that we're with now. And so we've seen kind of several different companies, especially during that pandemic. We've made friends with people all in this industry. The NARPM community is huge. I did an episode right before we were actually in the national convention out in Vegas. It actually dropped the Monday that we were in Vegas about NARPM and our the community of NARPM, what it means to me, what it means to a lot of the other people in our industry. But specifically, during the pandemic, I think we all saw a massive increase in like software adoption that allowed us to continue a level of service that our clients and our tenants were used to, but also still doing it from a safe distance. I don't want to touch your stuff, but I still need to see your house, let you see a house, get you into a property, do some marketing. A lot of these things were like, oh, how do we do this without, sneezing and coughing on each other? And I think the first company, the first vendor that I think had a like instantaneous solution for us anyways, for me at that time, no doubt was Tenant Turner. Tenant Turner's like, we've got you covered. Look, you guys are using our service for marketing, but for some reason you still aren't doing self-showing, Jonathan. Well, why don't we change that over? Because at the time we were still showing properties, Tim, and that's insane to me now. You like, if I meet a property manager at some of these large conventions and stuff, and they tell me that they are actively showing properties, they are driving to a property to show it, like, it blows my mind. I'm like, why are you doing that? That's the least efficient way. Like, you're doing your clients a disservice, first of all, because how many showings can you possibly do during a day? And they're like, we did 4. How many did you do? And I'm like, 29 or whatever crazy number we have, because it's just, I want to talk about self-showing. I'm going to let you handle that. But another thing that I feel like you didn't say about Tenant Turner's reputation, arguably the best customer service of any other vendor that we work with. James, your CEO and founder, there's a great story that I want to tell, and I'm happy that when James hears this, he's going to hear me say this story, although it might mean that he gets a few extra emails. I'm sorry, James, if you're listening, but I have to tell this story on 2 of my very good friends. So my pal Joe Levio works at a company in Birmingham, is a wonderful leasing manager, fantastic property manager, understands this industry inside and out, has been in this industry, 16 years? Does that sound about right to you for Joe? I think 16 years. Yeah. He's been in this industry for a long time. We were talking about Tenant Turner, and we were going to, I think, a Southern States conference in NARPM, and on the trip there, I was like, oh, the Tenant Turner booth will be there. We'll get to talk with, whoever happened to have been at the booth. It might have been you. It might have been, who knows who it could have been. Actually, I think it was Sean and I don't know, one of the girls. I don't remember. It didn't matter. But the point is, Joe was like, oh, I wonder if James will be there. And I was like, actually, I don't know. I love James. I hope James will be there. And I had just recorded a podcast with James maybe 3 months before that. And Joe's like, it'd be really cool to meet him. Like, he's like the best person I know at customer service. And in my mind, because I know that James is the founder and CEO, I'm like, you're right. He's great at customer service. And he's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I just, I always send him IT questions and just questions about like just random stuff. Anytime I have an issue with Tenant Turner, I can always just shoot him an email and he'll get on it right away. I need to tell his boss that he does a really good job. And I was like, excuse me, what now? You need to tell James's boss that he's good at what he does? He was like, yeah, I don't know. What is he like? What does he do? Like, is he the IT guy? Is he customer service? I was like, he's the founder and CEO of Tenant Turner. Thank you very much, Joe. You didn't know that? He's like, no, he responds to my emails instantaneously. He's the best person I've ever known at customer service and giving a level of like solutions of anybody I've ever met. So I had no idea. It was just I love that story. It cracks me up because Joe had just been sending James emails like, hey, I can't get this button to work. Why won't this click through? And hey, did I enter in this email address right? Like, it was cracking me up. I looked through like their email correspondence. It was hilarious. Little petty things. And James was instantly right on them, which is just another level of me saying, Tenant Turner is one of my favorite vendors, specifically because of you and your entire team. And then, of course, James and what y'all can do. So with that lead in, do you mind giving us kind of an idea of how Tenant Turner helps solve the marketing equation of property management? How do you guys help us take that vacancy cost, which is the highest cost for any rental investor that exists? Like, the number one cost you're going to incur is vacancy cost. And the best solution that I have for that is on this podcast with me right now. Tim, take it away, buddy.
Yeah, so you think about the whole process of marketing a property, showing a property. Then at the end of all that, you start going through and sifting through each of those applications and finding the best applicant for the property. Now, obviously, there's awesome things like fair housing now, where we need to do that last part in a safe way. But on the front end of things with Tenant Turner, what we help do is with all those hundreds and sometimes even thousands of inquiries coming in to property managers, we handle all of those, whether it's the email inquiries coming from the marketing sites like Zillow, Zumper, Rentals.com, things like that. All those come into an inbox that someone traditionally has to monitor. We take care of all of those and automatically respond to every single inquiry coming in with another email and say, hey, go to this property on Tenant Turner, provide some information, and then answer some questions. And if you pass those questions, whether it be income requirements you guys can set, whether it be pet requirements, whether it's just a couple other traditional little things like evictions, past rental history, things like that. If they meet your criteria that you guys set up, then we allow them to schedule a tour. Now, like you mentioned, there are a lot of companies that still do in-person showings. It blows my mind too, but at the same time, we can take that entire scheduling back and forth piece off of those agents' hands. Like, that's a massive piece there.
Just the scheduling portion of it. You're right.
Just the scheduling portion of it is chaos.
As much as I am a proponent of what are you doing? Do self-showing. Why would you ever send anybody out there? I do recognize you're right. Some people are just stuck in that I want to show the property because I think I can sell the property better than the property can sell itself.
Yep.
There's whole mentalities on that. I mean, I could do a podcast alone on why that's incorrect and like just efficiency and just man hours that you're wasting on that. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the fact that, the scheduling portion of it, like, okay, scheduling back and forth between the agent that's going to show it and the potential resident.
Cancellations, reschedules.
Oh my gosh. Like, that solution alone is huge.
Like, one individual potential tenant can take like up to 2 hours just rescheduling. Like, that's chaos. No, thank you. So we take all those things off of the agent's plate. But moving on to your side of things that you're in love with and what the pandemic pushed a lot of companies into is the self-showing piece.
It's so good.
Like, honestly, lots of potential tenants don't want to talk to an agent. They just want to see a property and decide whether or not they like it and want to move in. So with our self-showing piece, whether it's lock boxes or with keyless locks, we can allow people to schedule a showing at their convenience and not have to worry about a third party from the property management company being there to open a door or anything like that. We've got lock boxes that can have a key where the code changes every single showing so that there's no risk of having someone coming back later and getting the key out and squatting.
And that's another thing. They're pre-screened. We know who's in there when they're in there, too. That's the great part. Because Tenant Turner takes that pre-screening portion of it and is like, do you meet the income requirements? Or do you meet the credit requirements? Do you meet all of these other things? We know who you are.
We also have your photo ID on file now, too.
We also have your photo ID on file, so we know who's in the property. So like, it takes care of the security solution right there. But I want to stop and specifically talk about the self-showing aspect of it. And something that you just said, you talked about how a lot of tenants don't want to be sold a property, right? Like they want to go and look at it alone, which, conventional sales will tell you that, well, you know, when you have a salesperson there, you can do this hard close and force the sale and do all that stuff. I think in today's climate of interconnectivity over the internet and social media and all these sorts of things, people don't like to be sold that way anymore. It's completely a different mentality of what convinces someone to sign a contract for a lease, buy a property, buy anything, buy a service, buy whatever, to where this let them do their own research. And as long as you are, you know, providing them with the best level of service or what they are wanting, they're going to choose your product. Back when I was going through pre-licensing for my real estate license 15 years ago or whenever it was, you know, that was one of the parts. This is 15 years ago. This is 2007 that they specifically trained us on when we were showing houses. The best way to do it is let them sell the house to themselves, walk them in the door and say, hey, you guys take a tour and y'all come back to me if y'all have any questions, and let them go. That's how that was Realty South at the time, for Pete's sakes. But that's how real estate agents are trained to show houses, because that's correct. Walking someone through a house and pointing out all the obvious things of, oh, look at this nice bedroom. Oh, look at this nice. Nobody needs that. Let them walk through together, make their own, because first of all, they're more open when they don't have someone breathing down their neck. They're more apt to be like, hey, you know what? I do like this property. I wish it had X, Y, or Z in it. Maybe, you know, if I ask about it, maybe I can get that sort of thing, so that they can come back and then put in those survey responses. You know, I wish it had blinds. If it had blinds, I would be sold. And the quick, easy solution for us as property managers is to go, we'll put blinds in it. Sign this lease. We'll put blinds in it tomorrow. Boom. Oh, well, I didn't know. And they're happy because they don't have someone breathing down their neck, and they're not making those, what do you call it? You know, when you just like kind of placate somebody and be like, yeah, this is a great property.
They say yes to a salesperson, there's a higher likelihood of them having buyer's remorse too, and wanting to get out of the lease and not renewing.
And buyer's remorse on a resident is terrifying, because you've locked them into a 1-year lease. When a resident gets buyer's remorse on a property that they're renting, like the number of issues that causes is astronomical, because you end up with, like, they stop taking care of the house. They're not as apt to pay you on the first of the month. They're not happy to stay in there. They are looking for another place to move out as soon as they possibly can, because they weren't happy to begin with. And they're just looking to break their lease and get out of it and put you back in another vacancy situation, which that is what we're fighting against. Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
Costing you more money.
Costing you so much more money. And like, so the self-showing aspect of it, like I know the answer to this, but talk a little bit about how that opens up the number of showings, because you can schedule them so much more frequently.
I mean, let's take a step back and look at an agent's day. Like, if you have a leasing agent, they're probably going to be spending 3 or 4 hours a day just going through applications alone. So their day is already limited on what number of tours they can do for a potential tenant. So, okay, they've got 3 or 4 hours in their day, not including travel to get to properties. So they might be able to do, 4 or 5 showings in a day at a 30-minute interval? Like, that's not much. So with our system, with self-showings, all you got to do is hang a lockbox on the door, or if you have that smart lock that we can tie into, you can have that day completely open, and you can actually put additional hours on there. During the summertime, if the sun comes up at 7 a.m., it doesn't go down until 8:30 or 9 p.m., by all means, run those self-showings from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Absolutely.
And we can do those in 30-minute intervals for you. How many showings is that? That's at least 24 showings in a day per property. Yeah. If it's one of those high-demand ones, which we have seen a lot in today's market, it's going to happen.
We definitely have. When the inventory was massively low, and we are seeing a pickup currently of inventory. On my last episode, I actually dove a little bit into the supply issues that we're having now, which is there's a lot more supply on the market, and so days on market are starting to climb up. And the way that, I talk with clients, especially like potentially new investor clients, all day long, every day. That's what I do, is I talk to these people and help them find solutions. And recently, very, very recently, over the past 2 weeks, the number one question that I've been getting is, well, how are you going to lease my property quicker than somebody else? And these are all people that are wanting to switch from their current property managers, and like they're calling because I'm not happy. My property's been on the market for some number of days. And a lot of the time my answer is, you're being too impatient. Like, you're being unrealistic here. We all got spoiled.
Yes.
During the pandemic, when the supply was really low, of like, yeah, my property hit the market yesterday and I've already had 15 applications. We all got spoiled with that. There's no question. Back in those time frames, it was really neat to look through our Tenant Turner showings and literally see 24 showings today, or like 20. We had 22 showings on this one property in the first day that it was marketed. The second day, like in the first week, you're like, I've had 115 showings, and people are like, how do you even do that? And the answer is, well, Tenant Turner. That's the reason. But
So,
today,
it's piece there, and like,
absolutely,
it's not just on the agent side, but even on the potential resident side. Like,
of course, it is.
A lot of them can't do a showing until after 5 p.m. when they're off of work for the day anyway, and like,
which is when the property management company is closed, typically.
Exactly.
I mean, hopefully your tenants or your potential tenants, hopefully they have jobs. I mean, we would all hope that they have a job, and most jobs are, oddly enough, at the same times that our offices are open. Oh, look at that. What a crazy concept. And so those additional 3 hours or whatever it may be between, 5 p.m. and 8 or whatever you set the showing times for, that is huge. I mean, just those extra couple of hours of, yes, our office is closed, but you can still see all of our vacancies or all of our marketed properties until 8 o'clock. I mean, even in the wintertime, even when the sun goes down, we still show at 8 p.m. up till 8 p.m., I believe, because we have lights. Turn the lights on. Go see the property.
A few additional hours in a day, that's 25% more showings automatically.
Of course it is. Yeah. And so it's number of showings. I mean, because the reality is this, it's like any other sales mentality. It's a numbers game. It's always a numbers game, right? So the more people that can see your vacancy, the more people that can see your rental property, the more likely you are to have it leased quicker to a better tenant for more money. Like, it's just a numbers game at this point, right? So, I mean, those extra hours, those extra number of showings, whether it's like, oh, look, we did specifically, we're talking about how many you can show with an agent, which is 4, maybe 5 if you're in a small market where like traffic is easy. But like, if we're going to talk about Atlanta, where
Don't get me started on Atlanta traffic, buddy.
Let's talk about Atlanta traffic for a minute and how it affects the ability to show a property. For instance, now we have 2 offices in the Atlanta metro. So our main office, our corporate office is in Sonoya, which listeners, just to give you just kind of geography of Atlanta, this is South Atlanta. It's probably as close to LaGrange as it is to Atlanta in actual distance, but it takes about 35 minutes to get to LaGrange, and it takes an hour and 15 minutes to get into Atlanta because we're outside of the 285 circle. I mean, we're just a little bit south. So then we have another office up in Decatur, which is like right near like downtown Atlanta, like right in the heart. It's right there so that we can essentially get to all of our properties because we manage everything from the north side of the Atlanta metro to the south side of the Atlanta metro, even into LaGrange. And, it's a big area. And so, for instance, if we were sending our leasing agent to go show a property, because there have been several times that we've had a vacancy in, Marietta, which is north of Atlanta, and at the same time in, Griffin, which is south of Atlanta. Those are like 2 hours apart almost in traffic, especially midday. So when a potential tenant is available to see the property, maybe around lunch when traffic is chaotic, if we had to send leasing agents from either offices to get to both of those in the same day, you're literally scheduling them 3 hours apart, and you can do 2 showings and your day is done. Like, that's it. The solution of Tenant Turner, just, our leasing agent stays in Decatur so he can keep going and doing, his application checklist. And if he has to go and like visit a property to do an inspection, or if he has to go and do something that requires him to visit a place, he can go do that and not worry about these showings, because we just schedule them all through Tenant Turner. We have the lock boxes on the doors. People can go in there. Are they connected to Wi-Fi? Is that how the code boxes work? They have
no. So the lock boxes and Sentry locks are really interesting. They actually have an algorithm built into them that we tie into.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal, because we know who's. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. So we know who's in the property when they're in it. We know how many times it's been shown. But my favorite part, like, as much as self-showing is like changed the entire way this industry operates, like it really does. Listeners, if you have a property manager that is not doing some version of self-showing, and if they're not using Tenant Turner, they're not using the best version of it, in my opinion. But if they're not doing some version of self-showing, they are, in essence, leaving money on the table for the days that it's sitting on the market. It's just the actual facts of the situation. But my favorite part of Tenant Turner, outside of the self-showing, is the weekly reports on marketing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that is my favorite part of it. I don't have to go and look through the property and say, well, this is what I think people think about the property. We just tell them what they said. Genius.
Exactly. So that's one of the things we have built in. That was one of the nice things about working with NARPM from our start. With Tenant Turner, we originally were built for like DIY landlords, and noticed that there are some awesome property managers out here in Richmond that gave us some amazing feedback and helped us develop our product to what it is today. And so the world of NARPM, like you touched on earlier, amazing. And that's really part of the reason why Tenant Turner is as amazing as it is today, is because we've gotten great feedback from our customers like you guys. And one massive piece of feedback is that weekly owner report. So we can automatically send a report out to an owner that says how many showings happened, how many inquiries came in on that property, how many of those inquiries that came in were actually qualified prospective tenants. Because that's another big thing. Generally speaking, on average, we're cutting off 50 to 60% of inquiries, because these people aren't going to be people that pass your application criteria to begin with. They're not the types of tenants you want living in your nice $1,400 a month house, something like that.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, another piece that is on that report is the feedback. Every single person that sees a property also receives, after the fact, a text message and an email requesting feedback to ask them to rate the property on a scale of what they thought, how good it was. So it's easy for you guys on the property management side to say, hey, these people love the property. Let's make sure they fill out that application. But then also with that feedback piece, you can see something, hey, notice there's a little bit of a leak under the refrigerator. Maybe that's something for you guys to go check out really fast. Or maybe the feedback is AC's out, or the AC works amazing in this place. I want it. Like little parts and pieces that can be really valuable for you guys as well.
So when we're talking about just the benefits of like prop tech, which that's property management technologies and things like that. So services like Tenant Turner, and I mean, like you can go as far as like Rent Check and Property Meld and On-Site Pros even, and we could talk about infinity little things that we all utilize every day. But when we talk about the benefit of your property manager having the Tenant Turner technology in their toolbox, what that does, even if let's say that you are considering property managers, right? Let's say you are still in the process of like, how do I find the best property manager for me? You need to ask about these kind of tools, because one of the things that I love about Tenant Turner, once we get all those surveys and we have all the people that have checked out those properties, and we get back like, well, what are they specifically looking for? Maybe the price was too high on this one, or maybe I needed more space, or I don't like how this carport, fits my car, whatever kind of feedback that we get. The cool thing is we keep all that data. So when we have another property if you have a property that you want us to market and manage for you and find you tenants, guess what? We have a ton the people that we know are actively looking for properties that are just sitting in our database, and we give them all, like, every time we put a new property on the market. Like, we go back through all of our old Tenant Turner leads and we're like, hey, by the way, guess what? New property hit the market. Here's its Tenant Turner page. Do you want to go visit it? Maybe this one fits you.
For you.
Yeah, we've got one that fits whatever your issue was. Why don't you check that one out? Because we keep all that in the database, so we have more more data on available tenants, people that are actively looking. When you sign up for a company like us, somebody that is utilizing this level of technology, you're getting more than just someone that's going to collect rent for you and handle maintenance calls. And I think that's one of the things that many real estate investors, when they start looking for a property manager, that's what I think they expect property managers do. Because, and I think a lot of it has to do with, for several years before, like, the prop tech industry got as ingrained into the industry as well as it has, I think that's what a lot of property managers were doing. And it still shocks me every time I find a property manager that acts that way. But there are still several property managers that is what they do. I go and I collect rent for you, and I handle after hours emergency maintenance calls, and that's the whole thing that I do. Give me my percentage of your monthly rent. Like, that's a thing that people still do, and it shocks me to my very core every time I run across one. But when you are considering which property manager to use, ask them about their tool belt. What are they doing that is more than that? And many of us have a ton of stuff to talk about. I can literally spend, and I think we've spent 32-ish minutes at this point, specifically talking about Tenant Turner. I could probably talk about Tenant Turner for an hour about just the things that I like about it, and the ways that, as an investor, you might not ever stumble across something like, yeah, okay, we have self showings, and yeah, you guys are doing that, and that's great. But then, in the instances that there is an issue, whether that's, I didn't get my surveys right, or we had an issue with scheduling because there was a software issue. Every property technology company is going to have some sort of issues and, glitches in a system or whatever. But the thing that, as an investor, you might not ever run across, because you're not the ones making these customer service calls to say, hey, I'm having an issue with my prop tech. Can you fix it for me? The investor never runs across this, but for a property manager, I know that if I ever have an issue with a Tenant Turner situation, I know that it will be solved so fast, because y'all have, on top of just the incredible technology and the way that you guys help us fill vacancies, aside from that, you guys have probably some of the best customer service of any other company that I've worked with in this industry. I mean, the ability to take those issues and jump on them to fix them, it blows me away. And I just have to inform my listenership here, who are investors, who would never be the ones to make that customer service call, hey, we had an issue with X, Y, or Z. But just be aware that when your property manager signs up with a company like a Tenant Turner, that level of customer service that they give to the property manager directly correlates to how well I'm still able to manage your property and find you a tenant and save you money and make you even more money. But that customer service is incredible. And I just have to say a little bit about that. And a lot of that has to do with, just y'all's team. I think y'all's team is incredible.
I was going to say, I wanted to touch on that real fast, actually, if you're cool with that. Like, you told the James story, and James is our CEO, one of our co-founders. Like, the fact that he and our two other co-founders are the ones that started this company with that mentality of customer service really goes to show you the team that we put together. Our success team is the most amazing team that I've ever met in terms of their support and their ability to resolve a problem quickly. Like, and we have some cool tricks up our sleeve and in our toolkit that allows us to get to you guys quickly and respond to questions really fast. But at the same time, our development team too. Like, we've gone, like I said, Narbum has really helped us shape our product, and it's our development team and the feedback from customers like you guys and reaching out to our support team. It's not just James anymore. We've got Jenny, we've got Lane, we got Jesse, we got Mary Elise, we got Shay. we got a new hire coming too, so watch out. It's going to be even better in the future. Like, all these people are people that other property managers that are in that top echelon of property management are working with, not necessarily every day because we don't have that many issues, but
very rarely. I mean, I can't remember the last actual issue I had with Tenant Turner, but I do like that when I do have them, they're handled lickety split.
Exactly. And that's our goal, is to help you guys do that as fast as possible, just like that story with James. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you have reached out to me occasionally, like other people in your company have. Like, I still get support inquiries, and I'm like, hey, let me put you in the right hands. Mm-hmm. We all know where to point you guys in the right direction to get those things resolved and taken care of. And I love that my team is capable of that. Like, I can't say that I've ever worked for another tech company that can do that. Like, there were some companies I worked for that I was scared to send people to support. These guys, they've got it.
See, to me, that is what makes me feel secure as a property manager, because every day when I talk to a new investor, I don't just pitch Revolution. I mean, I love to pitch Revolution. I think we're great at what we do. But part of me pitching Revolution is me pitching Tenant Turner and why it's the best solution that we have looked into, because we've looked at several other options. Believe me, there are tons of people that will say, oh, we will handle your marketing, or we can do your self-showing situation. And I'm not saying that those aren't fine companies or whatever, but there's a very good reason why we have selected Tenant Turner as our solution for showing and marketing properties. We love Tenant Turner. I mean, Todd, I'm sure he would say several of the same things that I've said about just how well it works with how we do business, which is efficient property management. Efficiency is literally just putting dollars back in our investors' pockets and being able to do things in that quick, technologically advanced, efficient, way. I mean, a lot of that has to do with just like automation and just getting things done that, there doesn't need to be a person involved in doing this. There are software solutions that make this easier. Why am I sending someone an hour and a half to go do a thing? It can be done right here in the software. And that allows us to just make everybody more money in the end. It allows us to find better, higher quality tenants and put them in the property for us to then take to the next level of, processing. But Tenant Turner to me is I think one of the very first, it's like the first line of defense in the best property manager suite. It's the first tool we pull out when we take over your property. Like, the very first step is we get it to Tenant Turner, we get it in that marketing, because that's the first step in our tool belt of finding you the best tenant for your property, the best resident, and keeping your investment in the black instead of the red. We want to start it off right. And that very first step, I'm happy to start this kind of series with the very first step being Tenant Turner. They are wonderful people. It is a great solution. And I'm so happy, Tim, that you joined me today on this episode. I appreciate your time. I'm very excited that we got to do this and record it, because we have these conversations kind of daily anyways. So, we get to record one and put it on the podcast.
Right?
But
we got more nuggets, I'm sure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification at the top of the page on the YouTubes, and make sure to join us again next week. And we'll have another episode for you about prop tech and the tools that property managers use in their toolbox. But thank you so much, and we will see you again in a few weeks.